Right. Okay. So, piano basics in the key of C, particularly for or geared towards an African church. Um, where to start? Okay. So let's just hit the basics to start off with. So we're in the key of C, obviously. Two black notes. The one to the left that is an L shape will be the key of C. Okay. So the first thing we'll need to do is to figure out the scale. If you're going to play in any sort of key, you need to figure out what the scale is, and that's what we're going to do. The first thing is to figure out the scale. Now, the easy thing about the key of C is the scale is pretty straightforward. You just play every single white note up until you get to the next key that's an octave up, and you've played the whole scale pretty much. So from here, we'll go from the C to the next white note, 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 and then we land on, see, two black notes, L-shaped. We're back at a C, and everything moves up in octaves. Obviously, you're seeing this particular octave. This keyboard's 88 keys long, so you'll see this octave, these patterns where you've got two black, three black, two black, three black. You'll see that pattern repeat because it's essentially 12 keys repeating itself over and over and over, going up in octaves. So going up an octave every single time. And the 12 notes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you start again because you're back at the two black notes with the L-shaped key to the left. So that's pretty much one octave, and for the purpose of today, we're just going to be looking at the one octave, but I'm going to teach you a whole bunch of stuff just from those basics, and from there you'll be able to, so by the end of this video you'll understand what it is to create the, what can I say, the progression. That's the official term, the progression of the song. And you'll understand how to formulate progressions for different songs, because one particular song may have a standard progression, but you know, when people do remixes, or it's like, oh, I like the way that person played it, they might do their progression slightly different to the next person. So whilst there's a default progression, which generally tends to be the original, you can come up with your own progressions or different progressions to play the exact same song. So I'll show you that. So you'll be able to do that, or you'll understand the concepts behind doing that. But we're going to get straight into it. So anyway, we mentioned the 12 notes, and we mentioned that they go up in octaves. So we don't need to look at the entire keyboard. We can just work with these 12 here. And from these 12, we picked 7. And because we're in the key of C, obviously, it's easy to find where those 7 are. You just play the very next white note, and you'll hit the next note that you should. So breaking that down even further, to find a progression of a particular song, what you need to do is you need to identify 4 very key notes. And those 4 notes are the first note of that scale. So this is what we played here is the scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, back to do. And what we're going to do for illustration purposes as well is we're going to convert all those notes into numbers. And how we're going to do that is we're just going to name them based on where they are in their position in the scale. So C would be 1, D would be 2, E would be 3, F would be 4, G would be 5, A would be 6, B would be 7, and then back to C, which is 1. Some people may say 8, just to be able to differentiate that. I want you to play the higher up C rather than the lower one down, but it's still 1 all the same. Okay, so from those 7 notes, the 4 that we're going to pick distinctly are the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6. And those 4 are key in constructing any song at its most basic level. Thankfully for the kinds of music that are played in sort of the African church, not even just African church, but the African kind of music, those 4 notes are actually key. They essentially make up pretty much the majority of what you'll need to play a song at its most basic, and to also be able to reproduce the exact same song, even when it's not at its basic, as is, because a lot of our music will center around those 4 notes. So the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6. And when I talked about progressions earlier on, I'm not going to define what a progression is. And basically a progression is what combination of these 4 are you going to play. So which one's going to start and which one's going to end. And the second thing is how long you're going to play a particular note for. So you could have a quick switch, or you could have one where you hold, then you switch. And it's all about counts, the 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to go into any of that today. But essentially, you're basically working off your counts. So that's basically a progression. You've got a set of 4 counts. How are you going to utilize those in playing the particular song? When are you going to switch? Where are you going to, and where are you going to end? Okay? So once you understand that you've got these 4 distinct notes, the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6, and for the key of C, that's the C, the F, the G, and the A. All you need to know now is when you are working on music or trying to work out a song, whether it's one you've played before, one you've never played, or you're practicing to prepare for something else, these are your go-tos. So it kind of narrows it down, and it gives you an understanding of why people can show up at an event never having heard your song and play it perfectly, even though they've never heard your song before. It's because of these basic principles. This is pretty much the key. So another sort of hack to give you in all of this is that most songs tend to start the progressions for the different parts. So you've got like a verse and a chorus. You might have a bridge, but it tends to be just verse and chorus. They tend to start in the 1, and they kind of tend to end in the 5 or the 4. It's very rare for them to end in the 6, okay? But they can also start in the 6 as well. So it's more than likely when someone's listening to you do a song, they know, okay, fine. Wherever you are, whether you're your verse or your chorus, it's likely that that's going to start in the 1. So once they've got that 1, which is the key of the song, they will then know that, okay, it's likely I'll either go to the 5 or, they too also tend to go to the 5 first. So it's likely I'll go to the 5. So they're just kind of working out of preset parameters that they already pre-know that, I'll probably start in the 1, it'll probably go to the 5, and then, it'll go wherever it goes, and it'll either end in the 5 or end in the 4. So, to people who don't know, it looks like magic. Wow, how did you know how to play that? But these are basically the basics of them all. Furthermore, you'll tend to find also within our style of music is you don't tend to find the 6. The 6 is something that started appearing quite recently. Well, I say recently, I mean relatively, in the sense that when we got onto, sort of Western instruments, the 6 sort of was there to flavor things. But you can pretty much find, if you're really running everything at its basic, you can actually get away. I'm not saying you should do this, but you can get away with just using the 1, the 4, and the 5, which makes it even easier to be able to pick out songs. So a bass guitarist or a guitarist will just come, as long as they know that the song where the 1 is and they find that 1, they know we're either going to go to the 5 or the 4. I mean, it's a combination of 3. It's not too difficult. You can work it out. So so that's a general idea of progression, and let me throw a curveball at you. So we have that Hallelujah, let's praise the Lord song. Actually, no, let me pick a different one. What's popular? Okay, let's just go with that one. So that one actually starts in the 4. And that is a 4, 1, 5, 1. okay, or F, C, G, C. Now obviously when you start to play this, and I'm not going to go into chords on this particular video here, when you start to play this, you'll be playing it with chords, so you'll actually be playing the actual chord, whether it's in its root, in its basic form. I think they call these triads or tertian chords, not triads, tertian chords. And whether you're just playing it like that or whether you're using inversions, you'll find a lot of people use inversions. And inversions is just taking the same chord. So say if it was the C or the 1, it's C, E, G. They'll move that C to the top, and then they'll play it like that. Same chord, it's just a different inversion, starting with E, G, then C, or 3, 5, 1, but it's always going to be a combination of 1, 5, and 3. Or they can move that third, that E, higher. Start on the 5 and play it that way. 5, 1, 3, or G, C, E. Or if they move that one further time, you're just back to exactly what you started with, but only in a higher octave. So C, E, G, which is where we started off there. So obviously you're playing bigger chords, like you're adding a ninth in there or whatever, then the inversions become a little bit more complicated. Well, not complicated, but a bit more trickier, in the sense that you've got more notes that you need to shift across and you need to work out which inversions. The thing with inversions is certain inversions work better with certain parts of the song than playing your standard. So some people will play the inversion instead, and it sounds a lot more smoother. It fits right. And I know we said we're not going to go into chords today. Sorry. But certain inversions work better. So just a sort of introduction, or to start everything off. It was basically just a breakdown. Understand these basic principles, and you'll go a long way. Principle number 1, there are 12 distinct notes. Principle number 2, from those 12 we use 7, which is a scale. And from those 7 we said 4 or 3, but we need 4, which is the first, the C, the 1, the 4th, the F, the 5th, the G, and the A, the 6th. And then the next thing, when you're trying to work out a progression of a song and you've never heard it, or it's your first time, or you're practicing at home, is a lot of the times you'll find that more often than not, the song will start in the 1. Okay? And then more often than not, you can also find that it will go to the 5. So if that tends to be the case, then you're home and dry. You find the 1, the 5, okay, I'm halfway there. Okay? If it doesn't, it's likely it'll start in the 4, and then it'll either go to the 1 before coming back to the 5. And also when you're ending the songs, if you're trying to work out, well, what's the most appropriate note, if you find yourself ending in a 6, it may sound nice, and this is where people go wrong. It may sound nice to you because you're thinking, ooh, that's different. And this is a trap that sort of us keyboarders fall into. Well, I'm not really a keys player, but this is a trap we fall into where we end up doing things that sound nice to us because they are different to what we're used to, because we're constantly playing the same chords all the time. So when we play something different, it's like, ooh, that sounds nice. But in reality, we're really annoying our singers, because for them, they're trying to sing a particular note and it's like, there's tension here. It's clashing. And one thing you must understand with tension, so for example, I'll show you a typical example of tension. That's a B. That's a C. These two are not normally just played together, but I'll play them together. One more time. And you can hear that there's tension between the two notes, because it's like, whoa, they're trying to fight for dominance. Now you're listening to this from a piano. When someone is actually singing and the musicians are playing notes that are clashing with the note they're playing, they don't only just hear it, they feel that tension, because they are the instrument, and what they're singing is uh, sound is movement of air. Okay, so there's air vibrating in when notes are being played from an instrument, and that air is vibrating. Now, if they're singing another note, what's coming out of their mouth is literally clashing with the vibration of the air around them coming from the instrument. So if you wanted to end that on a 6, for example, as I was saying, and it may sound nice to you because ooh, this is different, that's why it sounds nice. What's happening to them is they can feel that clash, that tension, and it makes for a very unpleasant experience for them, which is why you'll find they'll say, oh no, that person is good, but we don't want to play with them, we want to play with this guy. And you'll find this more of experienced keyboard player feeling offended that why don't they want me to play? This guy plays really basic. But what they're saying is when he plays, the term is timbre. It's spelled timbre, musical timbre. The term is timbre. When that individual plays, even though they're playing really basic, the vibration of the notes in the air is working well with the vibration of the notes that they're singing. So it's an easier experience for them. Therefore, they will always default to that particular individual, and they don't have situations where this happens. And it's more situations where this happens. So you can see there's a massive difference in how easy that sounds when it's like that, and when it's like that, as opposed to when it's. So avoid trying to sound cool or trying to make things sound different. Always look for the easiest way. Obviously, if you've got one of those singers who's coming up and they're doing all these runs that are going into, they're coming outside of the normal, progression, and they might be doing actually, I'll play this one for you now. It'll make sense. So they could do. I'll play 2 different variations, and then you can see what I mean. So pretty much I've played. I know it doesn't. You're like, what? That's the same thing. Yeah, that is the same thing. And it's the same progression in the sense that it's 1, 5, 4, 4, which is what I just played. But the second time around when I did it, I did a 1, and then I did a 7 on my bass note, which you can't actually see because it's out of the camera. But here I played a 5. So I went 1, 5, 4, 4 on my chords here, and I'll do it again for you so you can see about 1, 5, 4, 4. And I played the same thing here when I did the second time around. I did a 1, 5, 4, 4. But the difference is when I played on my left hand side, second time around, I did a 1, 7, 6, 6, and it added a completely different flavor to it. And the point I'm trying to make with musical timbre and figuring out the best progression to play for whoever's actually singing, going forward, is make sure that you work out the best way to do it for that individual. And don't just sort of say, this is how I've learned it, or I like the way this sounds and therefore I'm going to do it my way. You have to work as a team. So I'll do this again for you so you can see what I mean. So the chords on my right hand never changed because we said, those are the basic progressions of the song. That's the basic progression of the song. What changed was what I was doing on my left, because I realized, okay, for this particular, or you can realize, or you'll come to realize for this particular individual, that is kind of the way they're singing it, so therefore I will play it that way. And all of this will come with experience, etc., as you break into new ways of playing the same thing. Initially it'll come from the fact that you're bored of playing the exact same thing every single time and you want to branch into something new. Other points it'll come where you're playing the same song and you'll find somebody else doing something different, which really fits with whoever was singing at the time. And then in the future you'll hit somebody who's singing it that particular way and you'll go, I know exactly how I'm going to play this, and it's just going to work so well. Everyone's just been like, wow, it worked really, really well. And it's not just because of what you've done, but it's the combination of what you're playing with the combination of the notes that are being sung. So that's another thing to look out for. So to do a quick recap, and I'm just going to end this video here, is the basic principles. You've got the 12 notes that we mentioned. 12 there. And from the 12 in the key of C, we said we've got the 7. Obviously I played the 8th from the octave up, and from those 7 we've got the core, which is 1, 4, 5, 6, and we said from there you'll pick the progressions and pick an appropriate progression for what you're playing. And once you've picked an appropriate progression for what you're playing, then obviously you'll flesh that out with chords, and you'll style it out the way it should sound. But always aim to pick the best progression and always play it in the most appropriate manner, and stick to those principles. And when you're doing fat chords and you're playing bigger chords and you're doing all these other things going forward, you're adding 11s, 13s, 14s, whatever. If you have those core principles at the beginning, you'll not only be able to work out songs, those chords only make you sound better, but you're doing exactly the same thing. But they'll also allow you to be that musician that everybody wants to play with, or the singers want you to play, because you play the most appropriate thing, and that's what you're aiming to do. We'll cover some other stuff in another video. All right, peace.